Hello everyone, Brachiosaurus227 here, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Nerf Archive Season 2, and today we have a very rare and very vintage blaster to look at, but I'm not going to be looking at it. No, we have none other than the Firefly Captain himself. He's going to be taking a look at this amazing and really cool Nerf blaster from a long time ago. And that blaster happens to be the Nerf Action Series Switchfire, a very rare and very old Nerf blaster that is absolutely amazing for its time. Without further ado, I'm going to bring it on to Firefly Captain.
Hey everyone, it's the Firefly Captain here, and in collaboration with Brachiosaurus, I am bringing you Season 2, Episode 4 of the Nerf Archive series. And today we are going to be talking about the extremely rare Nerf 1994 Switchfire. I do want to give a quick disclaimer about the Switchfire. It's actually not 100% complete in original parts. This smaller part down here is actually a 3D printed replica that I designed, so just keep that in mind throughout this video that it's actually not 100% original. The 1994 Switchfire is quite the sight to see, and it could even be your first time seeing this thing. If that's the case, I'm here today to give you basically everything you need to know about this blaster. I want to start this off by talking about conceptually what this blaster is even supposed to be. This released back in 1994 under the Nerf Action series, and this type of blaster would be considered a HAMP-style blaster, maybe comparable to other things up on the wall here, like the ball blaster or blast-a-ball, where you actually push the air to fire the projectile. In this case, you have the choice between two ammo types, ballistic balls, and missiles. By using the swappable barrel system, you could switch between the two ammo types. If I wanted to shoot ballistic balls, I can take the barrel, and I'm going to be twisting this on carefully. I will go into more detail as to why in a bit, but you take it and you twist it to the right and it should basically click into place. And so now we have this on, but let's say I still wanted to have the missile barrel on there. Well, I can actually take this other missile barrel and then I can actually slide it onto the barrel like so. My replica doesn't quite work in the exact same way as it should, but it does work nevertheless. And so this is how it would be configured to shoot ballistic balls. But now let's say I wanted to shoot the missiles. In that case, I can take this barrel and I will slide it in, and again, you just twist it to the right. And then I can take the other barrel, which I will then place on the missile barrel like so. Just slide this in. Go. And that's how you could configure it if you wanted to have both barrels still on there, but you're shooting the missiles. So overall, it's a pretty straightforward design, but why is it so rare? I mean, you might look at something like this and think that it wouldn't be too much more difficult to find compared to other typical vintage blasters, right? Well, you see, that's the thing. This is like a regular release. This is not some special limited edition blaster or anything like that. The reason this is so rare is because it was very quickly discontinued. It was discontinued because of the safety concern of the barrel flying off of the blaster. Now, I'm unsure if it was just simply the barrel coming off of the blaster, or if it was another issue as well with this piece actually breaking off as well. Because I thought I heard that that was also another design flaw, which, if there's any proof of that, literally this Switchfire right here. I got this thing broken. I think now would also be a good time to explain how I even got my Switchfire. I bought this from my friend Oozified, who thrifted this thing. That is insane. But unfortunately, it was broken. So I actually did fix this thing. I used some plastic weld, and it's actually been holding up quite well. I just still make sure to be very careful with it, though. I would hate for it to break again. But I think I would say that this is a design flaw of the blaster. It kind of has a bit more weight than I feel like it should. I mean, obviously this isn't really that heavy, but maybe just a little bit much, you know what I mean? All on this point right here. So it does maybe seem to be a slight design flaw of the blaster. Speaking of design flaws, there is another one with this blaster that has to do with the barrels. So I'm going to very carefully take off the missile barrel here. And so the other design flaw has to do with the ballistic ball barrel in this clip piece. So you actually have to be really careful if you're putting the missile barrel, if you're clipping it on or taking it off, because basically the way this works is that it's pretty much just this part. I mean, again, this is the replica, but it's that piece like kind of wedging in between the plastic, so it technically is putting force on the plastic, you know what I mean? And it could crack or break off potentially, so you do really want to be careful with that as well. So overall, definitely maybe not the best design blaster. Kind of also doesn't help that it's also the older Nerf plastic as well too, so it might be a little bit more prone to that, but it definitely is not maybe the best design. Also, there's something else that I want to talk about that's probably even more niche than even the Switchfire itself. Take a look at this photo. So this is a promotional product photo for the Switchfire, and you know, at first it looks pretty normal. I mean, it's a vintage advertisement for the Switchfire. But I want you guys to take a closer look at the missiles. Do you notice anything about them? Those missiles are much like the variants that we actually got with the Switchfire, which are these blue and orange finned missiles. But do you notice how the ones in the photo actually have more of an edge to them on the fin? They're like sharper looking. So it's very interesting. These are believed to be like a prototype missile that we were maybe originally supposed to get, but we did just end up getting this style of missile, just with the rounded fins. If I'm not mistaken, my friend Vintage Nerf actually owns like one or two of these prototype missiles, and I will ask him if he can send a couple photos for them as well. But it's just very, very interesting. That's not the only thing to talk about in that photo. It has been pointed out that the Switchfire maybe looks a little bit more purple. If we look at the actual blaster itself, we can see that it's very distinctly a blue color. But I do think that you could say that it has maybe just the slightest kind of purple tint to it, right? It kind of does. So when we look back at the photo, I feel like it's just the lighting. You know, maybe it might look a little bit more purple under different lighting conditions. The reason I bring this up is that it does raise the question, was there supposed to be a purple Switchfire? If there would have been a purple Switchfire, would that have been the normal main release? Or would there have been another variant? It should be noted that this is the only known variant of the Switchfire to exist, right? Just the blue, black, and orange design. There was no other known variant to exist. But hypothetically speaking, if that photo was actually of a purple Switchfire, it's interesting to think about, to say the least, right? Would it have been an alternate one? Would it have been the actual main release? Or is it really just how the photo looks? As for the performance of this goes, it's, you know, your pretty typical vintage HAMP style blaster. I mean, it's certainly nothing crazy, but I figured I could just, you know, get a couple shots off here quick just to kind of show the function of it a little bit more. You pull this back and you push forward and it fires a ballistic ball. And then, of course, you can switch to the other barrel. Got the same thing, but with the missile barrel attached. You just pull it back and fire away, and it's fun. I will say that. It is definitely enjoyable to play with, but it's a vintage blaster. Very obviously not something you would be looking for the competitive purpose of it. And that does bring me to my final point, which is, what can you do with something like this today? You know, like if you were to get one, what can you do with it? Well, really in the end, it's a collector item, right? I mean, you may very occasionally plink around with it, kind of like how I do, but other than that, really, it's a collector item, right? It's just a very rare piece to add to your collection. With that being said, though, it certainly is quite the piece to your collection. I mean, this is absolutely a very white whale of a blaster, you know, that you would want in your collection, and absolutely something that you would want to keep your eye out for. Seriously, if you see this thing, if you are so lucky as Oozified and you thrift it, oh, please get that thing. Oh my god. Even if it doesn't have the barrels or something, you need to get that. It would be good to even know that another one even exists. I mean, you know, there's not even really many known online, so absolutely, definitely the blaster that you would want to be looking out for. This blaster has been regarded as being the rarest Nerf blaster, but I don't think you can really say that it's like number one. But to say that it's like maybe the second rarest blaster, actually it might not be much of an exaggeration. It's definitely really high up there, you know what I mean? But what about the value? What would something like this even be worth? That's a very tough question, actually, because there is like no market for these. So Oozified sold me his for $120. Keep in mind that that was without the missile barrel, and of course it was still broken at the time as well. I would say if you have a Switchfire that is in pretty decent condition, you know, it's not broken, and if it even has both of the barrels, that would especially make it a lot more valuable, I would say, if it's actually complete. I feel like you could argue that it's maybe, again, this is such an uncertain price, but I feel like you could maybe price it upwards of 200, perhaps a little over 200. I mean, it really does depend on how much of it you have and, you know, the condition of it. The stickers, I would say, are also a big part of this as well. I do actually have both stickers on the Switchfire too, which I think is pretty impressive, to be honest. That's also going to be a big part of it as well. Just take that with a grain of salt, but I do think that you could get like some good money for it. It's just hard to effectively gauge the value of something when, again, there is no market for it. We have to create its market. I believe that's everything that I have to say about the 1994 Switchfire. Overall, I think that this blaster is an absolutely incredible piece of Nerf history that must be protected. I want to thank you for watching, and I'm going to send this over back to Brickosaurus.
Thank you so much for appearing on this episode. I really appreciate it. And I really do. Shout out to the Firefly Captain. He has an amazing channel where he talks about vintage blasters. He'll also show some cool mods, or you'll get some thrifting videos. A really cool channel, and please check him out. I haven't tagged on the title. But what are my thoughts on the Switchfire? Well, it looks like an amazing blaster. I personally can't give a rating because I do not own one. But with that being said, I can't wait to see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
My junk drawer, my junk drawer. So many things I don't know what they're for, but I won't let it go. No, I will add more useless little things to my junk drawer.